This is ludicrous. We needed a part 2 of the pod this week. So you could think of this as a 3B. But we got to do this. We have a lot to talk about.
We'll get down to reality.
Let's get down to reality.
Welcome to Down to Reality. I'm one of your co-hosts, M. You might know me as Connection Queen X.
And I'm your other co-host. My name is Ro, also known as Reality Ops on Instagram and TikTok. And like I said before, this is our second episode this week because when we did the first, there was just too much to go over. And something that we've been saying we want to talk about is Scheana and her OCD. Having OCD myself, it was important that we have a conversation from it. I feel like separate from the overall main recap of Vanderpump. But we're also going to talk a little bit about Scheana and Brock and their relationship and Scheana and her mom. And we're also going to do a summer house recap and our thoughts on that and what we feel about Carl and Lindsay. What else are we going to talk about?
Beverly Hills. We have to get into that a little bit.
We also wanted to talk about Love is Blind a little bit, but that conversation goes far too. So we're going to have to wait for that for the next podcast. And this way M could catch up as well.
Yes, no, we definitely have to talk about Love is Blind too. I have a few questions, which maybe you could like allude to certain things.
Yeah, we'll talk about some of the things in the headlines. Have you seen those?
Yes. Yeah, we can talk about headline stuff, yes.
Oh, there's a lot of crazy shit. So yeah, that'll be the next episode. But if you wanted to hear about the 5th episode of Vanderpump Rules and our recap of that, that was the episode we did before this. So we have a lot about that there. And we also went over the lawsuit where Rachel Leviss is suing Tom Sandoval and Ariana Madix and gave all of our opinions on that as well. But let's talk about Scheana from episode 5. Let's start there.
Okay.
This is basically a continuation from our podcast episode before. One of the hot topics of the episode is Scheana and not understanding why Scheana is being okay with Sandoval after the whole TRO with Sandoval.
I just feel like he's not the one who put it against her, so she's not going to have the same feelings towards him. I was just thinking about how I felt about that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. Well, he encouraged it, I think.
Then that's crazy to me. If he encouraged it and she knew that he encouraged it, that makes no sense to me then.
Yeah, it's weird. So speaking of Scheana, what are your thoughts on Scheana and Brock after this last episode? In this last episode, he apologized to her for the way he acted at the store, which, by the way, was the store this episode or the one before? I can't remember.
Yeah, the store episode was this episode.
Okay.
Definitely wanted to chat about that little part. Just the store part. Because I was kind of shocked that they were fighting in the store like that. And I was shocked that Brock didn't understand socially, like the social awareness of like, hey, we're not at home right now. Like, can we not do this in front of people? I don't really like appreciate that. Also, I don't know if this is true or not. I know that Scheana has OCD. Does she talk about having anxiety or anything? Because that would heighten my anxiety through the roof.
Okay, so OCD most often stems from anxiety.
Okay, I didn't know if the two were like correlated or not in any way, and I didn't want to like say that she had that per se.
So let me say quickly, I am not a therapist. I am not a medical professional. Of course, you should always get the advice of a medical professional. What I'm going to tell you here is an understanding from someone who experiences this in their own life and who has been to plenty of therapy and learned a ton. So let me say that before I say this. But your OCD is basically how do I explain this for people? So if you're just listening, I have OCD and I had it to the point where it was debilitating, like the worst I could have ever imagined. I've had it since I was a kid. It was normal in my life. Like it was just something I dealt with every single day. Didn't bother me. It didn't bother me, which the interesting thing about OCD is it stands for obsessive compulsive disorder. So there's a lot of people who have obsessions, a lot of people who have compulsions, right? But they don't consider it a disorder unless it's disruptive to your life, it's bothersome to you or the people around you. But it didn't really bother me much until I was a full-blown adult and in my 30s, actually, not really until I was in my 30s. And postpartum OCD got really bad. So I completely understand what Sheena is dealing with. Now, the reason why I'm saying, let me explain it. So, for instance, people drink, right? There are some people who drink to deal with their feelings. And there are some people who overeat to deal with their feelings. A lot of people with OCD, not everybody, by the way, but a lot of people with OCD, your compulsions are to help deal with your feelings and your anxiety and to make it feel better. So you do these compulsions to kind of tame that anxiety that you're feeling. So if you're in situations or times of higher stress, higher anxiety, most of the time your compulsions or your obsessions are going to be worse. So you're basically asking the question is like, is him giving her that anxiety, is it going to cause her OCD to be worse? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I was just saying in general, like, that would heighten my anxiety personally. I have anxiety, and I was just like, being empathetic and thinking, "Oh my god, if that was me in that store, I would feel so, so anxious." And I don't know if that could kickstart her to have, like, OCD thoughts. I don't know if that's how it works.
Yeah, probably. It's very likely that it did. And the hard thing about it though is when you have OCD, like the people around you, of course, don't know what they're like how they're contributing to it and they don't mean to. And they're not to blame because nobody knows the way you would deal with it except for you yourself, you know? But yes, I'm sure it made it worse, but also it was kind of just like a husband and wife fight or just like a general anxiety thing that could have happened for that. Like it doesn't necessarily mean like her OCD was set off, but yes, it's very, very likely that her OCD would be more set off because of the way he was
See, and, like,
acting.
that's, like, how my brain works is I'm, like, I always overthink everything, so I'm like, "Okay, you just kind of, like, were mean to her the week before. You kinda yelled at her in front of her mom and her sister's friend. I do understand you're also frustrated, Brock, as a husband. I can see that side of it, but I'm analyzing it in the sense of, like, you were nasty to her then you kinda made nasty comments when she finally left the house, when they went on
Mhm.
that double date. Okay, you guys are away right now, so for me, that's a little reminder, "Hey, her anxiety might be heightened, we're away from our baby." I'm just looking at all those pieces, and I'm like, "Was that really the most appropriate time to have that conversation?"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's how I was
Mhm.
looking at it, picking it apart.
I don't know if it's also a cultural thing. Like he's Australian. We have a lot of Australian listeners actually and followers. So if you are Australian and you want to like chime in, feel free to message us about this because I would love to know. I do have some family in Australia, but I don't know if that's a cultural thing. Whenever I watch TV shows that take place in Australia, I like love how blunt people are and they
Yeah,
just
that's
like
true, that is
say
a good
shit.
point, yeah.
So I don't know, but the fighting outside, in public in stores, he should have been mindful of that, and he did apologize for it. I don't know how much convincing on her part it took for him to apologize, or if that was like a natural apology on his part.
Well, I was gonna
But I
ask
mean,
you that. I wanted to know if you thought his apology was genuine.
yeah, I mean, he looked pretty genuine with it, but it probably took some understanding of why that was inappropriate. I just feel I know people don't feel for her. I really feel for her and I feel like I thought it was interesting. He brought up her mom and I love her mom and I want to say this does not take away from anything that her mom has done. She's done an amazing job being a mom to Sheena. That's clear. And what I'm going to say here, I want all parents to understand this, whether you have a child with OCD or you don't have a child with OCD or whatever. I just want you to know that this is not putting any blame on the parent. But he was saying that her mom has opinions about Sheena's parenting. And Sheena said herself on the show and on the after show, she talks about this more because he said something like, your mom makes you feel like you do everything wrong or something like that. Right. And she was saying the same thing that her mom has a lot of opinions and she doesn't know like what she's doing right and what she's doing wrong. And okay, It's funny because one of the things that always surprised me when I found out that Sheena had OCD was I know she has a super close relationship with her mom, but I always one of the things that I figured out through having OCD myself and talking to many people about OCD, and because I like to just figure shit out, is something we all kind of have in common is never feeling good enough. Never feeling good enough.
And I do I just wanna say for listeners that don't know, I'm not a parent. I do work with families and young children, and I do hear parents say that quite often, and I'm always like, "You are doing such a good job. Are you kidding me?"
Oh, no, no, I'm saying the child doesn't feel good enough.
Oh, I thought you were saying that the parents don't.
No, 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 no. And that's true too, of course,
Okay.
but one of the things that's a common trait of people who have OCD is that we don't ever feel good enough. We've never felt good enough.
My bad.
Like we
Totally misunderstood that part. Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. So we feel often like we do things wrong. And a lot of it stems from being told, and again, not with bad intention, not with the intention of doing any harm, but told often, "Don't do that, do this, or do this instead," or, "Oh, you can do this better," or "Do it this way," or "Do it that way," blah, blah. And so quick advice for parents out there. I am a parent too, and this is hard to do, and I understand that now that I am a parent myself. You have to try your best with kids to let them do things and make the mistakes and not overcorrect. Because if you have a child who has an inclination of any type of neurological disorder, OCD being one of them, especially, you can start to set off these types of compulsive thoughts of thinking that they don't know how to do things on their own. OCD is called the doubting disorder. It makes you doubt everything. Sheena is currently doubting her abilities to be a mother and to protect and to do things the right way and to take care of her child. So, she talking about her going to Disneyland by herself with her daughter and making such a big deal about it, and that was being an exposure for her, which I thought was an amazing exposure. And then people putting her down saying, "So what? I do that every day, or I do that all the time." First of all, I don't know who goes to Disneyland every day. I remember somebody commented that on her post, and I got real nasty with my response back because
I
really you go to
remember
Disneyland
that. I
every day?
remember that, and I was like, "Wow, people really don't have a good awareness of other people's mental health."
No, no, they don't. They do not. But like, yeah, we get it. Some things are easy for you, but you know what? This might be her area of weakness, but she might be so freaking not she might be. She's going to be so freaking amazing in another area that you are going to be weaker in. But it's a doubting disorder. It makes you doubt everything about yourself. To give you an example, a really extreme example, I always loved to cook. Cooking was my thing. I like to show love through my cooking. Like my grandmother was an amazing cook. I was very creative with my cooking. When my OCD got really bad, I started thinking I could not prepare anything properly. And I was afraid I was going to do something wrong and hurt somebody. Maybe the chicken wasn't gonna be cooked enough. Maybe, the smell of the beans wasn't right and I didn't realize it. I started doubting everything, doubting all my instincts. You doubt all your senses. It got so bad that I remember the point right before I got help, I was boiling pasta, which I had done a countless number of times in my life. And I had seen the foam coming up from the pasta in the pot. And I'm like, do do I always have that much foam? Is there something wrong with this pasta? Did I not check it? Did I not check it enough? Am I not careful enough? I threw out the pasta. I put on another pot of pasta, and then I did it again. I'm like, "Did I do something wrong? This doesn't seem right. I think I did something wrong. I think I wasn't careful. Maybe this was an old box of pasta." And it was so bad, and it was so sad, and it took a lot of work to get over that. Um, but I just doubted everything I did. So I'm giving you that as example because it's a little more concrete. It's a little harder when you're listening to Sheena if you don't relate to this because Sheena has like intrusive thoughts. So what Sheena's experiencing is things like when her daughter goes to bed, what if, God forbid, she doesn't wake up in the morning? Or her daughter's by the stairs. What if she literally will picture I'm giving an example of something she could do. I don't know if this is what Sheena's picturing, but I'm explaining intrusive thoughts to you. she could picture her falling down the stairs and getting hurt and then say, oh, maybe I shouldn't have her play over there by herself. Or maybe, I'm not being a good mom by letting her play anywhere by the stairs. Or her child could be in the bathtub and like picture her child, like hitting her head on the faucet and or falling and hitting her head on the tile or something like that. And it's like it's called intrusive thoughts because they're like images that pop into your head of things that you don't want to happen, but you're afraid to happen. And what OCD does, it attacks what's most important to you. So what's most important to Scheana? Her child. So her brain right now is making her feel like worried that everything she's doing is going to makes her brain worry that she's going to do something to negatively impact her child or that harms her child. That's her greatest fear. And she doesn't want to be responsible for that. So it's easier for her to let other people do things, I think. Like that's why Brock is doing more things. That's why her mom is doing more things because she needs to develop a trust of herself. Does
Yeah.
that make any sense?
No, that made you the way you just explained that was, I thought, thoughtful and beautiful, and it makes a lot of sense. It does. Again, in the profession that I have, I feel like I'm very understanding of that. And I feel like maybe others aren't as understanding because they haven't been exposed to certain things, but that all makes complete sense.
Yeah.
I
And
feel
it's
like
really
she's in
sad.
a very like I feel like she's in a very let's remove Sandoval and everything else. Let's just look at Scheana as a person. She's in a
Mhm.
very tender time in her life.
Yeah. And with the OCD, I think that's where sometimes I have a little more sympathy for her because she also because she hasn't learned to trust herself and that's what she needs to learn how to do and trust her senses, um, including like her sense of self actually. But because of that, that could be why she's seen as so flip-floppy because she could be like, I wanna be friends with Sandoval because he was good to me, but then she's worried, "Well, if I do that, what are people gonna say about me? What are people gonna say about me? Or if I do that, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he really is a jerk. Maybe he's not a jerk. Maybe" like, her back and she's probably got so much going back and forth in her mind, more than the average person that people don't understand. Like, there's probably so many obsessive thoughts about all of this that people aren't getting, could be contributing. And you know how she's cries a lot, people always say, like, she makes things about herself, like, I truly don't think Scheana wants to make things about herself. It just seems like that because she because she's, like, constantly struggling in her head and, like, in her heart. I don't know, I just feel like she's in a it's a hard time, and she seems like she's getting better when she talks about it on her podcast. She had a doctor help her. Um, I know she's doing exposure therapy, which is like most important. I think she's getting supplements now to deal with it. She tried medicine to deal with it, which medicine is important and helpful. But medicine with OCD, they tell you that, it can only take you so far. With OCD, it's really about getting the therapy that you need and doing the work that you need to do. Not that you shouldn't have medicine. Medicine is really important for a lot of people, but it can't take you all the way. It's not like one of those disorders where your symptoms can be, like, completely better by having medicine. So I just don't want people who have loved ones with OCD to think, "Oh, they're on medicine. They should be fine now." It doesn't work like that. It's super helpful for a lot of people, but not for all, and depending on the person, it could only take you a certain percentage of the way. And then there are, of course, certain people who don't wanna take medicine or can't take medicine for certain health reasons. It's different for everyone, but there's one thing that's true about OCD. OCD is like retraining your brain through therapy. It's like a very complicated disorder. So it's a hard one. So when he was talking about her mom, I felt bad because I'm like, "Oh gosh, I get it." Sheena has had those thoughts. Like felt like she wasn't doing things right. She's felt like she wasn't doing things good enough. But at the same time, her mom saying those things, she had no bad intentions there. It was nothing done maliciously. Um, I see people talking about it being like a narcissistic thing. on parents' part. That's not necessarily true. Most of the time, parents wanna do things the right way. It's just that we don't realize what we're doing. So, I just wanna say her mom doing those things, I kinda feel bad now, like, she's being brought up on the show because her mom probably had no realization that she was, like, harming her in that way, like, harming Scheana in that way.
No, I feel like we know the nature of her mom from the show and everything and their relationship. It's never ever intentional. You know what I mean? Ever.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it's intentional, sometimes there's terrible people
Oh,
out there and
yeah, no, no, in regards to Sheena and her mom, I don't think that was
yeah,
intentional, but yes, no, sometimes it's absolutely intentional, yes.
and I also wanna add that, again, even if her mom did do this, this does not, like, cause OCD. You know, our brains are literally different. If you look at a scan of a person's brain with OCD, we are different. Things are firing differently. However, certain things in your life can trigger it and set it off. Anxiety, like we talked about before, traumatic events, and like Sheena talked about with her pregnancy and dealing with all of that. And I want to say also, intrusive thoughts, I want to explain this because it's not just the type of intrusive thoughts that Sheena has, but some people might be able to relate in this way. Intrusive thoughts are also things like, did I turn the stove off? Did I lock the door when I left the house? So if you follow Elise Myers, who I absolutely love and adore her on TikTok and Instagram, and she's so cool. She loves Vanderpump Rules, and she follows me on TikTok, which is absolutely amazing. And it was like a gift. Um, but she does some videos about intrusive thoughts, and she just did one recently about, checking the stove. And so if you've ever seen someone do this, or you might have done this to yourself, this is an example. Looking at the stove and saying, okay, the stove is off, leaving and then being like, wait, was the stove off? And then going back, oh wait, I'm not sure if it was off. Let me check it again. Let me check it again. Locking the door when you leave the house. Did I lock the door? Did I lock the door? Sometimes going to your car and then being like, oh wait, I shut the door, I locked the door, but wait, did I really lock it or did I just close the door quickly? Sometimes people will leave and literally drive down the street or drive to work and then worry about it. It could be with your straightener, your flat iron. There's so many different types of intrusive thoughts. The ones I gave for Sheena are just one theme of intrusive thoughts. And again, when it's impacting your life, it's when it's considered a disorder. So we were saying last time that we had to cut out of the podcast. It was really great of Sheena to have a babysitter come, and it didn't work out with Tori. But you know what? She tried, and that's what needs to be celebrated. And if you're somebody in a relationship with somebody with OCD, any type of relationship, whether it's your partner, a child, a spouse, a sibling, a friend, but especially a partner or a parent, like the person who you're supposed to rely on all the time. Like what people with OCD need above all is cheerleaders because there's no one who doubts us more than we doubt ourselves. And once the people in my life understood my disorder more and were able to have patience with it, I was able to do a lot better. It was like 95% on me, but I needed that 5% of support because we are the harshest critic of ourselves. We really need other people encouraging us and supporting our wins. And that's why I liked like when her mom was saying baby steps because truly most people with OCD do need baby steps to get there. Some people can do a few sessions of an OCD type therapy and, be much better. But for a lot of us, it's not that simple. And it's a lifelong thing. Like it's our brains are literally built different. It's something that we always will, struggle with. It just how much it affects our life changes over time. But in your 30s, I think that is they say 30s and 40s, I think is like the hardest time for people with OCD. Not everyone, of course, but like it tends to peak at those ages. However, OCD typically starts, or I should say, typically starts being noticeable in childhood, like around ages like 9 to 11. But again, having it as a child, I don't want you to think that, oh, it's definitely going to get worse. No, like if you have a child that has OCD, just know getting them help young can really do wonders and they'll have the tools that they need. And being supportive, being a cheerleader for them, knowing and telling them that trust yourself, having them know that they have you and you have their back is is invaluable. And remember, like, I had mine as a young kid. That's when I noticed it, but it did not severely affect me at all until I was in my 30s.
Is it usually, I'm just curious, is it because sometimes it's linked to, like, pregnancies and stuff? Do you think that's why? Or just, like, in general?
It's not really linked to pregnancies.
Not,
It's
like,
just, I
linked in the
think
sense
you're,
of it gets, like, exacerbated more. Only because I
I
do
think
know
it's,
some people, some women specifically that, have had really bad postpartum, like, OCD.
yeah, I think it's your hormones that affect it. For instance, like when it's like before my monthly time, I will feel a huge spike in my anxiety and my OCD will come out like way more. Um, so I think it's like hormone related more than
I was just
any.
wondering, like, I'm like, "Oh, I wonder if that has anything," only because, like, I feel like usually, like, women are having, like, kids in their 30s and stuff. So I was just
Yeah.
curious if there was, like, a correlation there.
Yeah, so OCD is very common in pregnancy and definitely after pregnancy, definitely postpartum, but I'm not sure. I'm not an expert obviously in this, but I think it's more the hormones rather than the pregnancy. But my OCD probably did start getting pretty bad about 2 years postpartum, which I think is also when Sheena started. I'm pretty sure I've heard that's also a peak 2 years postpartum, not sure why exactly. Things in my life absolutely set it off. But yeah. But men have OCD too, so it's not just.
Oh, okay, so when you said, like, it gets worse in your 30s and 40s, it wasn't just for women. My bad. I took that only because we were talking
Yeah.
about Tina. Sorry, okay.
Yeah, no, it's like for anybody. It just seems to be like the time where they say it
Yeah, then I
kind
could
of
see that
peaks
then
for
with,
people.
like, the hormones and stuff then too. I could totally see that for both men and women then, yeah.
Yeah, you just have, like, changes, like, bodily, changes, but yeah, so I don't know. Sheena and Brock, I'm interested. I appreciated the scenes with them, though, and I felt like they were the most real scenes we were seeing. I like that with Brock, Sheena's not pretending as much like
Mhm.
she did with her other relationships.
1,000%. I feel like this is one of the realest relationships that we have seen Sheena in because we're not just seeing the highlights.
Yeah. And also Brock's not pretending as much as the other people. Like, he's much more outspoken and just says it.
Yeah, he seems to definitely say what's on his mind. I
Yeah.
did though appreciate that he apologized. I was like, "Okay, good on you."
Yeah. He really upset, I know both of us last episode that we didn't get to share, but the way he was just, like, diminishing, like, her efforts. But
Yeah, I was frustrated with him because I was like, "Wait, I feel like first off, you're not being as sensitive." And a lot of people were like, "Okay, but like if you have to deal with that all the time, like it does get frustrating." And I get that. I totally understand. Trust me, I get it. I know what that could be like having to, you know, be with a partner that struggles in some way with something. You know what I mean? Like you have to
mhm.
also foster some like patience and understanding and kind of come up with a game plan together. So that's why
Yeah.
I was frustrated with him because I was like, I feel like you're kind of acting like a coach instead of a teammate. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Yeah. And they both have to understand each other. I think that's what helps.
Yeah.
Okay, so hopefully that provided you with a little bit more of an understanding of OCD. If you're somebody who suffers from it and you want to message me about it, please feel free to. Or if you just have questions or if you have a child with it, I just want you to know I am here for that. If you're on TikTok, only message me, but I definitely would say if you're also on Instagram, message me there instead because I just find the messaging so much easier there. But I hope that it's helped some of you to understand it better and maybe to understand Sheena better. Again, we're not blaming all of her behaviors on OCD, but I just wanted to provide a little bit more context for some things that she may be going through and just explain it better. And if you yourself weren't ever sure if you had the disorder, maybe this helped you to see it more clearly. This is not very easy for me to talk about. I do feel very vulnerable doing it, but if it could help even one person, then I'm happy about that. We're just going to take a quick break and give a shout out to Draw Me Bitch, the person who did our podcast artwork, who is amazing. Please check her out on Instagram and on TikTok. She also has her website, shopmebitch.com, where you can buy coloring books, stickers, gifts for all things Bravo. But she now has a subscription on her page, which gets you access to weekly Vanderpump coloring pages. Definitely go check her out. You will not regret it. And I also would like to give a shout out to our friend Peyton. She is Glorified Gossip Girl on Instagram. Right now, her account is down because of weird rules that don't make sense. So please go follow her back up at Glorified Gossip Girl, but with a U for the girl. And she also is Glorified Vintage Girl. She does amazing work. A lot of Bravo Lebs wear her and order from her, including Ariana Madix, Danielle Vera, Katie Maloney. Go check her out and support her. Her website is on her IG page, or it's www.distressedout.myshopify.com. She is a super hard worker. She's great at what she does, and she's an amazing person as well. So 2 fabulous girls to check out. And now back to the pod. All right. Should we move on to a different show?
Okay, so enough about Vanderpump. Can we please talk about Summer House?
Let's talk Summer House. Let's change it up and go into a new vibe.
Okay.
Can we talk about West? Because I loved him.
I love West. Yes, let's talk about him. He gave a great first impression.
He needs to stay the same. Please don't
turn
into a douche. Just stay nice. Just stay good.
I don't know who he reminded me of per se, but he reminded me of somebody I know that's just like, oh, you know, this person. It's like, yeah, and they have good energy and they're a good person. I don't know. It was just very like, I don't know if this is a word, homily. Is that a word?
What?
I swear, I think it's a word.
Homily is like a service in church.
No, then I'm not using it in the right then it's not the right word. But it was that's not the right word. It was very like familial of him to be like, hey, I'll cook dinner. Let me do this. That for me, I appreciate when somebody does. It's like, hey, you're trying. You know what I mean? Like, you are so welcome. Like, obviously everybody's welcome, but like, I do take note and I really like to like communicate when I appreciate something. So I would have said to him like, hey, I noticed that you're like cooking us dinner and I really appreciate that. Like, you're the new guy and you didn't have to do that. And I appreciate it. So
the way he like romanticized like Sierra into cooking, I don't know how that happened. That was the weirdest thing. It was like witchery, that magic. But he got her to be in the kitchen. At first I was like, my husband and I were laughing. We're like, he's making quesadillas because that's like the easiest thing we make is quesadillas. And then he made good quesadillas, like involved quesadillas.
Yeah, he made authentic, like he tried. And I don't know. I was smiling when I was watching him. I was like, okay, this is cool. He doesn't, like you said, he does not seem like he's a douche. He doesn't.
I hope he stays that way. His energy feels so nice, and I think is changing. It's amazing how one person's energy can really affect a group, which we then see with Lindsay. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But Wes is so light but deep at the same time.
Yes,
and
great.
I can't think of who he reminds me of. Something of
someone. No, that's so fair. That's why I keep saying, like, is it like a family member that he reminds me of? Is it like somebody I went to high school with? He just reminds me of somebody who's like wholesome.
Yeah. Okay, this is the weirdest thing. And it's only like a slight smidgen of who he reminds me of. A slight smidgen. Kind of in look, kind of in character, smidgen. It's a weird one. Robin Williams. I don't know.
Oh,
I love Robin Williams.
Oh my gosh, R.I.P. Ooh, Ro, we've never talked about Robin Williams.
I'm doing the sign of the cross right now. I can't help myself.
I should have assumed that you liked him, but yes, me too. And yeah, I could see that. He's very like his energy, like you said, I feel like it transfers. It transfers through the screen on the TV. Yeah. I want to hang out with him. He's just like happy, fun, happy-go-lucky, you know?
He needs to stay the same. I really hope that he doesn't like change character and then ends up being a douche. He just seems like
I hope not. I don't see it happening that way. I hope not. But somebody who, only because you just used the word douche, somebody who I'm apprehensive about is definitely Jesse Solomon, whose full name we're going to use.
Full name. You have to use the full name. Yeah, he walked in and he looked like the guy that was on the race who was like the most photogenic guy. He's like smiling like a big ass smile.
That's what I mean. I was like, I feel like all I remember is his mouth because all I can remember is his smile.
I did Jesse Solomon the first episode. I felt that way. Like he might be a bit douchey or have not a lot of substance to him, maybe, which is an unfair thing to say, but that's what I thought. Just initial first impressions, which always change. But then the second one, when he talks about his story and his, you know, his cancer story, I was feeling more from him, obviously, and I'm
Absolutely.
hoping.
Yes. Only because the first impressions, and we didn't
I
get a
know.
chance to, like, talk about it because I hadn't watched it yet, but, like, first impressions from the first episode, I was like, "I don't know how I'm feeling about you." Wes hit me, like, very differently. Like, I kind of felt like, "Okay, like, I know where I think I'm gonna sway with him." Whereas Jesse, I was like, "I don't know." And then, like, obviously, my heartstrings were completely plucked the second episode because I was like, "Oh my god, I would have never known that, ever."
Yeah.
He doesn't carry that with him in his energy,
Yeah, which
you
is
know?
cool, yeah.
Which I don't
I
want
mean,
anybody ever who has ever suffered through the like, horrificness of cancer to carry, but I was like, "Oh, okay," because I was apprehensive at first, and then I was like, "Hmm, I didn't see that coming. You kinda pulled the rug from under me now."
right. I mean, you know, we'll see what his personality though is like. He seems to not care who he's flirting with. That was interesting. He said all the good girls are already girlfriends. Like,
I noticed that, and I was like,
what?
"Ooh, that's an
Not.
interesting take. Okay."
Yeah, like what? You have to be in a relationship to be an amazing girl? That just makes no sense.
So, I just felt like he was pretty boisterous when he even said to Kyle, like, "Okay, so none of the girls are off limits, right? Except for your wife." I was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, but like, would he take someone else's wife? Like, I'm like, what do you?
And then I did not expect Amanda and Kyle to come in the way that they came in with, like, they're having their, like, beef already off the jump. I was not expecting that. Um,
God,
yeah,
they're such a roller coaster.
I know.
They're such a roller coaster of a couple. You never know what you're gonna get. They're like a box of chocolates every season. It's always different. It's like they love each other, they hate each other, love each other, hate each other. Like every year.
And, like, together as a couple, they're like Scheana because of how much they flip-flop. No, I'm kidding, I'm kidding. Um,
Yeah, true.
but I wasn't expecting that, and it kinda made me say, because I really do I love them together when they're good, so I would love to see them be good together, you know? And I do feel, personally, like Amanda's kind of very over Kyle. What did you think about that? I feel like she's so over him when she was like, "Kyle, I've learned how to, like, do parties by myself." Like,
Yeah. Listen, this is like the same thing with a lot of these couples, right? Amanda and Kyle, Kyle Richards and Mauricio, Ariana and Sandoval. It's like the woman tells you they need you to be here. They need you to be present. They need to hang out with you in order to have the relationship be better. The guy doesn't listen. And then what the fuck happens? One of them fucking cheats. Not one of them. The guy's been cheating. And then it's over. Or the woman is like done with you because she can't take it anymore. And it's just like, why does this keep just listen. If you want to maintain your relationship, stay home and work on your relationship. Otherwise, you don't want to maintain the relationship. And like, I don't want Amanda wasting her time. I don't want her wasting her time. Like, I like Amanda and Kyle, and I really do like Kyle, but I'm worried that she's wasting her time at this point.
I agree with that though too, because I feel like they are kind of, even though they're a couple together, I feel like they are at different places. Like, I feel like Amanda, she does have a more serious disposition about her, but I also just feel like she's way more mature than Kyle is in so many different ways. So I'm like, that's interesting because I feel like in that way they don't align. And I don't want her wasting any more time either. So I agree with that.
Yeah. I feel like I could see Amanda, like in 2 years, I could see Amanda living in the New Jersey suburbs, big, beautiful house, kids on the front lawn, like relaxing, having a Dunkin' iced coffee on her porch. Like that's where I see Amanda, where Kyle is just like a city boy, like work, 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 work. Like
Yeah.
Amanda does not seem like she has that same work ethic. And that's not a bad thing. Her priority is more like friends and family, and his priority to me is more work.
Okay, but he says that he's doing that for their future. Do you agree with that, or do you think that he's just a workaholic? Because I
But
really
it doesn't matter. Like the mentality of saying that is just it's the same with Mauricio and it's the same with Sandoval since the show is his work. It's like the mentality of you're not prioritizing the people you love most. I have a big problem with this. When a partner is like, "Yeah, I'm doing it for us. I'm doing this, whatever." But like what are you doing? You're just driving us apart by not spending time. Like the most Mother Teresa, right? She's the one who says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family.
That's so sweet.
Yeah, I have a sign that says that
Wait, I
one.
love that. I love that so much.
And that's what I feel like should be happening. Like, of course, your job is important, extremely important. And I'm not taking away from that. And of course, it's important to do things that make you feel independent, make you accomplish. But at some point, you have to say, what is going to be the most important thing in the end? Like, the money that you have or the people by your side? And I just don't think they're prioritizing the people that are supposed to mean the most of them. Like PK with Dorit. PK going away for a fucking month when he has 2 children and Dorit in the United States of America, and he's just quote unquote working in London, right? What the hell are you doing? You don't need to be doing that. You could be working remote. It doesn't seem like he has a job where he has to be physically there for a month. You do not need to be over there. So it's just, they're not prioritizing the right
I
thing.
never understood that. I don't get that. If you are working, because that confused me. I was like, wait, I thought that he was working virtually. Why is he over there? Why isn't he like home with Dorit, who's like, hey, PK, you haven't been there for me. I'm going through this, this, and this, you know? So I don't get that. Are like, I guess
Listen,
we were taking a separation then? Is that why they did that?
no. Well, maybe, but no, I don't think so. Dorit just seemed like pissed at it. Dorit and PK. I, I I don't ever like seeing families split up, but I cannot see how they will last because he leaves. And she went through the most traumatic thing, like one of the most traumatic things, and he just leaves her. What, is he nuts?
That's what I don't understand though. Like, okay, hear me out. If that happened to one of my friends who didn't like, let's say, have a partner, I would be there for them in place of not a partner, but like a solid person that they could have. It makes no sense. That's your husband. I mean, that's your wife.
Yeah. It's
That
really upsetting.
confused me. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah. It's really upsetting. So I guess we brought this up because of Kyle and Amanda. Anyway, I don't know what's gonna
It's,
happen with Kyle and Amanda,
we gotta
but
get for a sidetrack. Okay, wait. Okay, so Summer House. Sorry.
I'm not liking where they're headed. I just feel like it's, you know, I like them. I do. I want it to work, but I just don't know if it's going to work. And it seems like right now she's taking a break from trying to have a baby again.
Like got the vibe that she's checked out of the relationship. And I also got
Mhm.
the vibe that if she isn't pushing this pregnancy anymore and that's all she really wanted, like what is gonna happen? I don't know. But last night on Watch What Happens Live, Paige said that like they had a like fun summer. It was a good summer. And so maybe that was just like in the beginning of summer they have a little issue and then
Yeah, but like what, because Kyle just get it together for the camera?
I don't know, and that's another thing, like, Amanda mentioned that she really loves going there to get a break from Kyle, and so that and I'm like, "That's also not good. You should be wanting to go there to make memories with your person, not to s." You know
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
weird. It's definitely
I don't know, there
weird.
was just many and for me personally, the impression I
Yeah.
got was that she's I don't wanna say 1 foot out the door, but I feel like she has her hand on the doorknob.
Yeah, I can't even believe that he was saying that he doesn't know if she's ready to be a wife just because she, like, doesn't wanna work as much as he does, and by the way, like, not saying being a wife, sorry, be a mom, your work ethic, like, at your job has nothing to do with being a mom, like,
Okay,
at
I
all.
was also again, I'm gonna keep saying it, I am not a parent. I don't get that. That didn't make sense to me. I was like, "What?" The 2 are not the same.
No, they're not the same. I don't even know what I guess he was doing what like, what she said, which is, like, putting it on her instead of on him, which is just so annoying.
I know,
Why
and
does
then
he have the mullet? What someone needs to help me with the mullet situation. I don't understand. What is the thing with don't they understand that the mullet is, like to me, it like, what's her name? Patty Stenger when she used to be, like, dry up, like, I don't get the mullet. I don't get the mullet. Can you explain the mullet?
I can't explain it either personally. I am not a mullet girl. Like, that's I don't see a mullet and I'm like, "Oh, I want that." You know what I mean? Like, that's not something I'm into. I don't get it. I don't know.
Some
Um,
girls like you think some girls do like the mullet? Oh,
yeah.
Chelsea on Love Is Blind says she likes the mullet.
Yes. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I like know, like some of my friends have said, like, oh my God, I love a guy with like a good head of hair, like a mullet. Like, and I'm just like, oh,
Wow.
that's cool. For me personally, I I would I don't really I'm not like that. I'm not like, "Oh, you need hair, you don't need hair," but, like, the mullet, like, I could leave it, you know?
Oh god, yeah, I can't wait for the mullet to be over. I just also hate the word mullet.
But do you think that Kyle's kind of doing it as, like, a brand? Like, he's branded himself with this mullet now?
Yeah, but I don't know. It's just like I think it's very douchey. Mullets are very douchey. If you have a loved one who wears a mullet, or if you yourself wear a mullet and you hear this and are offended, I am so sorry. And if you are not douchey and you wear a mullet or you love somebody with a mullet, please message me. But to me, I
Pops.
wonder if mullets to me, I just feel mullet, your level of douchiness is up a little bit.
Wait, it just sounded like one of those infomercials when like, "If you or someone you love has been affected by mullets, please call this number."
Yeah. Do you know my daughter loves those? My daughter's favorite things are
Right.
infomercials and, the medication commercials.
Dude,
She, like, loves
I was just about to ask, does she like when they talk really fast at the end?
she loves the whole thing. She knows all the jingles. The other day, she was singing the one there's one about, like, a depression medicine. What is it? It's a depression.
I, like, can hear the inflections, like, "Prevecta" I don't know if this is a real thing, but, like, "Prevecta can help you do this, this, and this. Are you suffer" I think I can hear it.
Oh my god. The other day, I was, like, itching my skin, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so itchy," and she's like, "Maybe you should get Skyrizi." And I
No,
was
stop.
like,
No, she did not.
"What?"
Wait.
And we're like, because she knows from the commercials, and I'm like, "I don't have psoriasis, but thank you for knowing that and suggesting it."
Wait, I love that she, like, actually thought, like, "Oh, I can help mommy. Let me tell her about this medication that I know about."
Oh my god,
That's
it's
so
so
sweet.
funny. What is it, the fucking depression commercial? It's like that jingle. It's like a jingle. Oh, wait, is it Jardians? It's Jardians. So, hold on. As time went on, it was easy to see I'm lowering my A1C. It's diabetes medication. It's not for depression. It's for diabetes, not for depression. She loves it.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
Also, I am curious if you get different medical commercials on the East Coast versus the West Coast because they
Oh,
trial a lot of things in different areas. Like, I know they trial a lot of drugs out here, so we'll get commercials for things out here that might not necessarily air on the East Coast. I know Ozempic was airing out here prior to, like, the East Coast, like, commercials for it.
oh, maybe. There's a lot more Ozempic use out there, I feel like. But and by the way, we are in no way, shape, or form making fun of any of these medications or what they are treating. We've dealt with plenty of these things, dealt with depression, have family members with diabetes. Just saying the commercials and jingles themselves are funny. That's it. But yeah, we definitely have those Ozempic commercials also now. So, Summer House, pretty sharp left turn back on track here. We were saying, okay, you love Paige.
I really do love Paige. Paige always makes me so happy and so smiley. I just love her, like, little one-liners and, like, her "I don't care" attitude, but you know that she does deep down, she cares a little bit. I just love Paige.
Yeah, I love Paige too. I think she's really funny. I love Sierra. I mean, I really like the cast. I like Amanda. I like them all. But let's get to Carl and Lindsay. Carl and
Yeah, let's
Lindsay.
get to
What did you think when the whole Carl and Lindsay thing first came out? What were your initial thoughts? Like when everybody's like, Queen Lindsay, you know?
like, back in September when everything, like,
Yeah,
came out. Well, honestly, my first thought is this weird? I remember where I was when the news
it is
came
weird, but
out.
I liked it.
You wanna know why? It's because it was kind of around the same time I started my TikTok account, when I really started posting.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, "Oh, this might be something I should cover." But I was thinking
Where were you the
genuinely,
day that you found out that Carl and Lindsay were calling off their engagement?
I was sitting in
What
a
were they?
high school in my office, and I just had finished a therapy session, and I was writing the note for it, and I was like, "Alright, I gotta go to the bathroom." Let me go to the bathroom, and I'm, like, scrolling on Instagram, and I was like, "Wait, what? No, this is not true." Because I had seen, like, a blind item about it a
Mm,
day or 2 before, and I was like,
right.
"Wait, is this confirming everything?" Oh my god.
Yeah.
Um, when I originally heard the news, though, I'm gonna be honest, I thought that Carl and Lindsay would be good for, like, a relationship, not a marriage. I thought that it would be good for them to date and have a fun relationship, but I didn't see marriage for them for
Mhm.
different reasons, personality styles, lifestyle choices. I think that there has to be some serious alignment in certain areas, and that's not to say I do not think that if somebody's sober, the other like, that partner has to be sober. I just feel like personality-wise, I feel like Carl is so much more flexible than Lindsay is.
Mm.
I feel
Okay,
like
interesting.
Carl isn't as rigid in his thinking as Lindsay, you know? So, for
Okay.
reasons like that, I wasn't shocked. Long story
Yeah.
short, I wasn't shocked.
Yeah, I was, like, so not shocked. I was more shocked that people were shocked. I mean, I don't think they ever should have dated. Like, I never understood I never
But they had a
under
fun friendship though, so I kind of was like, "No, I'm here for this. I would like to see them date." They have such a and their friendship was not platonic, so that's why I was like, "I'm excited to see them date."
I don't know why. I have never felt Carl feel much of anything towards a relationship. The most I ever felt like that he felt really into someone or more into someone at least was Paige.
I was literally just about to say, "Paige."
Like,
Yes.
I feel
Same
like he
here.
would marry Paige if he could go back. I mean, actually, I
Exactly.
don't even know. I think Carl is, like, needs a lot of work figuring out what he wants and all of that, but, like, I just never felt it with Lindsay. Like, even the friendship, I got how they were friends, but, like, to me, it was just I could not feel the connection. I could see it. I mean, I could see them not pretending, but I could see what I felt like was almost pretending, almost like role playing this relationship, but I felt no true connection between them. I feel more of a connection watching people on The Bachelor than I do watching them.
Yeah. No, and that's so funny that you say that because I was gonna ask you, do you feel like Lindsay's PR background had any influence in how maybe we perceived their relationship?
How we perceived their relationship?
In the sense of, like, she knows how to do a good PR spin. "Everything's great, we're fine, we're like, you know, and
Yeah.
like, things
I
like that."
mean, yeah, I don't know if it is even so much for Lindsay to blame on Lindsay as it is to blame on him. Like, I think he wanted this is my own opinion, okay? I think he wanted so badly for it to work because he saw that she was there for him during his hard times, and this happens a lot with people.
Yes,
And
it does.
she was there for him during his hard times, and he was like, "You know, why wouldn't I pursue this? Why wouldn't this be a thing?" And I think he wanted it so bad, and, like, they're on this show together, and they do these things together, and it would be good. But it just wasn't there. It just wasn't working. It just didn't hit for me.
No, it didn't, and, like, I mean, Lindsay in general, I feel like has maybe what's the right word? I don't wanna say struggled, but, like, has had some challenges in
Mhm,
relationships,
mhm.
and I couldn't not see them having similar challenges, and I'm not blaming Lindsay, I'm just saying because maybe they have different communication styles, they have different perspectives,
Yeah.
different goals, whatever the case is, but yeah, no, I agree, it didn't hit for me either.
Lindsay needs to be with somebody, like, ages 45 and up. That's what I think. I think she needs to be with somebody older.
Same,
I just
agreed. Yes, because
Yes,
she is such a, like, runner, like, I feel like she runs the show, she might need somebody to also
absolutely.
run the show, you know?
Yes,
Like,
she
put her
needs
in
someone
check
in
in, like, a nice
charge. Yes, ma'am. I agree. I absolutely agree with that. She needs somebody in charge. Okay, so Carla Oh, I came into this s season thinking I'm going to be completely open to what really happened. I was not all about, like, Queen Lindsay because I know how she is in relationships, but I also wasn't like, "Oh, go Carl," 'cause I don't know how Carl is because Carl is a very confusing character to me personally. I I've I've been so happy for Carl in what I understood as his sobriety. Now I understand it's his sobriety from alcohol and cocaine.
Right. And I
Okay.
didn't know that either, by the way, I wanna make that very clear. I was kind of confused because I thought that he was just sober from alcohol, I didn't know about anything else.
Oh, yeah, no, he said on interviews, like, cocaine was his thing and alcohol was his thing, but I did not know until recently that when he talks about it, and I was watching several interviews on this since watching the episode, but I didn't pay attention to the key words, and then I realized, oh, he keeps saying alcohol and coke are my things. I'm sorry, not are, were my things. Like those are actually he might have even said are, but like in reference to saying like are the things that I have to stay away from. Um Kind of like James Kennedy, California sober. So, I have not seen him mention mushrooms. I tried finding this, but he has said in the past so he's been sober from alcohol for 3 years, but at first he says he was still doing weed, and then he I found an interview that said, like, he had stopped doing weed, but I don't know if he's doing weed now. Like, this other interview that I saw with him and Kyle was super recent, and he only said, like, coke and alcohol were his thing. So, I do wanna say that when we're saying that he's sober, because people talk about this with James Kennedy, he's not sober of everything. He is sober of alcohol, and he says he doesn't do cocaine. Well, I shouldn't say he's not sober of everything, but from his words, it seems like he's specifying alcohol and cocaine that he's sober from.
And that's like a big thing in like, the sober world, sobriety in general, it is not a one size fits all model. So I absolutely could see. And like here's the other thing I've been
But
thinking
then
too.
people feel differently about that, you know that, right?
I
Because
mean,
that's what I
yes,
thought too, but,
yes. Yeah, yeah. No, no, no. Yeah, people definitely feel differently. I feel like it's very
like,
polarizing.
professionals feel very differently. Professionals
Yes,
feel like you need to be sober from everything.
from
You need to not
everything.
have anything. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I feel like that can also be super polarizing because I mean, if you speak to people that are sober of alcohol for 20 plus years, but they may play with, flour here and there and they have no issues. And then there's
What's
others
flower?
that flour is THC, weed.
Oh, flower, like
I
FLOUWER.
forget that
Okay.
we're not on TikTok and I can like say weed.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, so, you could speak to somebody else who is in their sobriety journey and they've been sober for 20 years and they're like, nope, I am sober of everything. I do not touch anything. So that's why it's
Mhm.
like, I feel like there is somewhat of like a spectrum with this too. But professionals, I feel like it is very polarizing. Professionals either think you should not do anything or no, there is some room if you are able to handle certain substances, you might just have issues with others.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know because I mean, I've had loved ones deal with these issues, so I have that perspective, but I have not dealt with them personally, but I have said before, like, being somebody with OCD and dealing with OCD, I find myself understanding more how difficult it probably is for people with substance abuse issues because it's like they rely on the substances to help them cope with their issues, where I rely on my compulsions, or I used to rely heavily on my compulsions to help me deal with the issues that I'm dealing with. And just like how people who have, food issues, they overeat, which is something I did when I was younger. Like I would rely on food to help me cope with what I was feeling. So I understand that I have no personal understanding of what it's like to deal with substances, but I can be empathetic to what they might go through because I can feel what it's like to be fighting your pain with something else.
Yeah, and I thought that that was really interesting when you mentioned that too. I was like, wow, I never thought about it like that. And I love when somebody says something and like a new thought is uncovered. I was like, yeah, no, that actually makes a lot of sense. And I think that also says a lot about you with your empathy too. Like you were able to apply what you go through in a different way, but it does relate.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I feel so bad for people having to deal with substance abuse issues. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for their loved ones. It's got to be so hard.
It's so, so difficult, and, again, it's not linear, and I feel
Mhm.
like I do think of Lala because in this most recent episode, Lala of Vanderpump Rules, she does say, "It's an everyday it's a day by day, baby," like, and I believe
Yeah.
her when she says that. So, like, I really yeah, my heart goes out to anybody struggling with addiction abuse or a family, a loved one that has somebody in their life, it definitely is very, very difficult to go through. And I'm sending
Yeah.
anyone love out there that's going through anything like that.
Yeah. And speaking of that, when Carl was accused by Lindsay of doing coke, and what did she call him? Coke Carl? That's what she
Yeah.
called him?
Yep.
Or Cocaine Carl. Um, that was rough to see and hear, and I cannot imagine being a person if I was true to my sobriety and I knew I was sober and I knew I've been working my ass off day after day to remain sober, whether it's from everything or let's say from cocaine. I can't imagine being accused of that falsely and also on television, and just the feeling of just being accused. It doesn't have to be on television, just the feeling of being accused of that is so horrible if you know that you're truly sober from it.
Yeah, I just was really upset, and I kind of felt, like, offended that Lindsay said what she said about Carl being Carl again. I'm like, "Wait, that's the person that you're about to marry?
Yeah,
And that's what you're saying about your loved one?" That did not hit me the right way. Yeah,
yeah.
that bothered me.
Now in saying this, I do have a little bit of a different take on it from what I was seeing everywhere. Everybody was really after Lindsay, and like I just said, I hate what she did. I think that saying that on TV, she came out with an apology, and actually I should read that, but she came out with an apology, saying that it was supposed to be like a private conversation between her and her friend. But you know it's not private. You're on a television show, and you know there's cameras in your bedroom recording every single thing. And unless you're in the bathroom, which your mic could still be on, but like you're being recorded. You know that this is being recorded, whether you're drunk or not. You've been doing this for enough years to know that you're
And
being recorded.
she made that comment to Wes. She was like, "I know the room situation. I've been living here for years." Like,
Right,
you've
right.
only been living there for years, you've been doing this for years, and that was frustrating. Like, her apology contradicted it. Like, "Lindsay, you're on a reality TV show. You are
Yeah,
getting followed and filmed."
yeah. But I will say this, I am not ready to say that I'm ready to say that I do not like what she did. I think that's a horrible accusation. It should never have been on TV like that. But I don't know if Carl had taken anything or not. And I don't want to accuse him of it. But the truth is, I don't know. And I thought he looked a little bit off, but I'm not sure. I did compare it to previous seasons, like a psychopath that I am. I looked back to old clips today.
Like the analyzer that you are.
Yeah, and I watched him going in and out and seeing, and he does walk a little awkwardly. He's very long, lengthy, tall, you know. Um, so I'm not positive, but I did think he was acting a little different. Not saying he had taken, would you say taken cocaine? What the fuck do you say?
Use.
I'm not saying he had used cocaine. I'm not saying he drank, but I don't know if he was on anything. I don't know. And all I'm saying is this, while I don't agree with what she said, a partner who's with their person for that long, and they were best friends also before, knows very differently than anyone else when their person is a little off and not quite right.
And I was gonna say, and not acting right, or not acting how they typically act, and I do agree. I kind of feel in the same way, like, when they say, like, "A mom always knows," like, "A mother always knows," like,
Yeah.
usually the partners, they do feel or pick up on things
Yeah.
and see things differently.
My husband's voice, like, we've been together for a really, really long time, but my husband's voice, and we drink very rarely and only socially, but if he would be out, like, when we were younger, I could know by his voice if he had 1 beer, or literally, I'm not even joking, 1 beer, 2 beers, 3 beers, or 4 beers. Once it was past 4 or more, I'm like, you know, that's the same thing. But I could literally tell in his tone, the way he speaks, I could tell if he was looking at me, the way his eyes were. So when she mentioned the eyes, I was like, I could tell. So I think it's important to not like castrate Lindsay right now because we don't know. And another thing, The reason why I thought things were off is because of the way that they filmed it. Why did they not show us Carl clearly being sober or not under the influence of anything? They have footage from inside wherever they were, the bar. They usually show more of that. They did
Okay.
not cut to much footage of Carl at all, and I thought that was strange, and I wasn't
Me
sure if they were
too.
gonna. What?
No, me too. I did think that that was strange because they showed little, like, tidbits from the night of everyone
Mhm.
else's perspective, but they never showed Carl and what happened that night.
They never showed what happened that night. Um, Weird. So, that was, like, those were the few things that to me were, like, right away off, like, right away, I'm like, "Oh, shit. Oh, shit." And I'm like, "Oh, shit," and he was coming after her. But I just wasn't I felt like there was something a little off. It might have just even just been how he's feeling about her and being, like, so done with her that he's, like, acting like this. It might have nothing to do with substances. I'm just saying I need more to see and watch and hear and observe before I say she's terrible for doing. I mean, she's terrible for saying that, okay? She shouldn't have said that. But if you're acting out in such frustration, let's say it was real and he had used something, I can't imagine what it's like to be that partner and feel that and be like, "Holy shit, like, what are you doing right now?" She shouldn't be talking about it to Gabby, to anybody, but you just don't know. So I just wanna wait and see. And I pray that he really was clean. He really is sober because I think that he seems like he's been doing really well. And I hope that's the truth. And I also hope that it's true because it wouldn't be fair for her to make it look like she's crazy if he actually was using.
Agreed. I really genuinely do echo what you're saying because I am not giving an opinion right now. I want to watch the whole season. I need to see everything and then I will feel comfortable because I'll have all of the info. Um and like you said, both sides of it. It's not fair to Carl if he really wasn't. And
Mhm.
in the same breath, if Lindsay was feeling something and that something was accurate, then she had every right to say what she said.
Yeah, or to feel how she felt. You
Or
okay,
to
so
feel yeah, or to feel how she felt in that moment, 1,000%.
yeah. I would much rather her be wrong. I would
Same,
much
I really do
not
genuinely
because I don't like her, but because
no,
I just I'm just saying I don't think it's fair for people to it's so funny because people are like, yeah, Lindsay," and now everybody's like, "You bitch." And it's like, let's just wait. Let's hold off a second
I
and
think we need to
freaking
be a little bit patient here with
yeah.
for this show specifically, and, like, again, I really hope that she was wrong. I don't ever wanna see somebody who does struggle with addiction and sobriety, like, not be sober, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's definitely nothing that I would ever want, so, like, I hope she's wrong for that sole purpose, you know?
Yeah, and you never wanna take somebody's, like, sobriety away, like, I used to say that with Sandoval, even when I was, like, in my real, like, gung ho hate Sandoval phase, people were like, "He's drinking," and I'm like, "Actually, that's not a drink, I zoomed in, and that's actually a Red Bull in that wine glass." So, like, I I just kept saying, "I don't like him, but I'm not gonna take his sobriety away from him," and the same thing with Carl, but I do think we need to wait and see.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's the most fair, and it's only episode 2. We have a
It's
whole
only episode
season
2.
to go through.
And her apology was interesting because let's hear this. I hated the part about the private conversation, but after watching back this week's episode, I wish I have used better wording. I was emotional and hurt. Should I read it like Lindsay instead?
I feel like you should read it as Lindsay would
I don't know
say
if
it.
I can read it as after watching back this week's episode, I wish I had used better wording. I was emotional and hurt by what had transpired earlier in the night, and what I said was meant to be a private conversation at home with one of my best girlfriends. I have never questioned his sobriety before this moment, and from day one, I was his biggest supporter. I have always been transparent on the show about my feelings and have leaned on my friends for support, and that was my only intention here. Okay, so I read it much nicer in my head, but let me read it normal too,
I
just in case.
mean, I mean, that is how I, in my head, read it as Lindsay, how you just read
Oh,
it.
okay. I read it as, after watching back this week's episode, I wish I had used better wording. I was emotional and hurt by what had transpired earlier in the night, and what I said was meant to be a private conversation at home, not true, but with one of my best girlfriends. I have never questioned his sobriety before this moment, and from day one, I was his biggest supporter. I have always been transparent on the show about my feelings and have leaned on my friends for support, and that was my only intention here. So the funny part here is people are really upset that she did not say anything. Okay, th- I think she purposely didn't say anything about him being sober in those,
Okay,
or
same here
him being
though.
clean.
Same here. That also was a question in my head. Why didn't she highlight at all that he was in fact sober that night?
And that's what makes me think that she doesn't think, or we are going to find out that he wasn't clean or sober that night or
And
something.
that's why we have to wait.
Yes, because people are saying, "Well, why didn't you?" Whatever, and I'm like, "Well, I feel like she probably didn't say it for a reason. Like, why, if she found that out, why wouldn't she just be like, I was so wrong for questioning his sobriety, or I was so wrong for questioning if he was clean. Like, why wouldn't she have said something like that? You know?"
That no, I'm literally being
We'll
quiet on
see.
purpose because I'm like, "Yep." I
We
forget that,
shall.
like, we are not doing video, so you can't see my faces, but I was like, "Mhm." I was making, like, the big eyes, like, "Mhm." That's why
Yeah.
I'm waiting.
And if she purposely didn't say something in her apology, though, and she knew that he was sober, then that's shitty as shit.
Yep.
Let's wait and see. Watch what happens. Um,
Watch what happens on Bravo, not watch what happens live.
yeah. So let's just close Summer House there. Okay, so like we said, this was the extra episode of the podcast for this week. So you should be hearing this will release on Tuesday. Tuesday is also the same day that the next episode of Vanderpump Rules comes out, episode 6, and that's what we'll talk about on the pod next week. And whatever news comes up, because there's always something. But I really am hoping that this next episode of Vanderpump, we just have something slightly more fun, just a little bit lighter. We just need something a little more refreshing, I think, from what we're getting right now.
Yeah, hopefully there will be a little bit more, like, spice and fun and light, and yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
It's not going to be light.
Wonderful, thank you.
I'm just realizing now as we're saying it, like thinking about what's ahead, and it's definitely not going to be light. Maybe the week after. We'll hope for the week after. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We really appreciate it. We love your feedback. Thank you for the messages, because we're just like talking to space here. So it's really nice to have you communicate with us what you're feeling about the pod, your thoughts about everything that we're talking about, your opinions. Like, we love that and appreciate that. And also, thank you guys for sharing the pod. I'm seeing people put it on their stories. Cannot tell you how much we appreciate that. So yeah, that's it for this week, unless something crazy comes up, but we will see you next week. And also, please don't forget to follow us and rate the podcast, because that helps a lot. We'll see you or talk to you soon.
We'll catch you later.
Catch you later.